What if I told you that the strongest kind of attraction has nothing to do with touch at all? I'm talking about the way you show up in a room, the way you look at someone, the way you make them feel when they are simply standing near you. This is not a trick. This is a real physiological chemistry, and it is something you can actually learn. So stick with me, because I am about to review the secret behind turning her on without ever laying a finger on her. Here is the thing most people get wrong. They think attraction lives in the body, in a touch on the arm, a hand on the back, something physical. But the kind of attraction that actually sticks with someone, the kind she keeps thinking about hours later while she is doing something completely unrelated, that kind lives somewhere else entirely. It lives in the mind. It lives in a feeling. And feelings do not need touch to travel from one person to another. Think about every movie scene you have ever seen where two people are just looking at each other across a room. Nobody is touching. Nobody is even talking. But you can feel it, that tension, that spark, that pull sitting in the air between them. That is real. That is not just something writers made up for the screen. Human beings are wired to feel connection through things that have nothing to do with physical contact. A look, a tone of voice, the simple sense that someone is actually paying attention to you. When you understand how to create that feeling, you tap into something more powerful than touch could ever be. Because touch fades the second it stops, but a feeling like that can follow someone around for days. So let's start with the biggest one, the thing almost every man completely misses: attention. Most guys think impressing someone means being loud, being funny, throwing out compliments left and right. But the fastest way to actually connect with someone in a way that feels different from every other interaction they have had that day is simply making them feel seen. Not seen as in noticed from across a room. Seen as in understood, even in some small way. Think about how rare that actually is. Most conversations are just two people waiting for their turn to talk. Somebody mentions a small detail about their day, a book they are reading, a strange thing that happened at work, and the other person nods and moves on to talk about themselves. Now imagine being the one person who actually remembers that small detail, who brings it up again later, naturally, without making a big deal out of it. That single thing, remembering something small that most people would forget, says more about your character than any line ever could. Here is what that actually looks like in real life. Someone mentions offhand that they love a certain kind of music, or they tell a quick story about their sister, or they mention they are nervous about something coming up next week. Most people let that detail slide right past them, hold on to it, bring it up again a few days later, casually, like it is nothing. That single moment tells the other person something rare, that you are actually listening, not just waiting for a gap to talk about yourself. And this goes deeper than memory. It is about how you listen in the moment itself. Real listening means you are not sitting there thinking about what clever thing you are going to say next. You are actually following where the other person is going, letting their words land instead of just processing them for your next line. When you give someone that kind of attention, something shifts in them. They start to feel a kind of ease around you that they do not feel around most people, because most people are only half listening at any given moment. You become the rare exception. And once someone feels that safe, that heard, they will not want to let that feeling go. It becomes the drug they crave without even realizing why. Now let's talk about tone, because how you say something carries twice as much weight as what you actually say. There is something quietly powerful about a calm, steady voice. Not loud, not rushed, just steady. When you slow down your speech instead of rushing to fill silence, when you let a small pause sit right before an important word, you are telling the other person, without saying it directly, that you are comfortable, that you are not nervous, that you are not trying to prove anything. Try this the next time you are talking with someone you care about impressing. Instead of rushing through your sentence, let a tiny pause sit right before the important word. Something like, "I really enjoy spending time with you," said slowly, with a small breath before the word enjoy, lands completely differently than the same sentence rushed out in one breath. That pause is not empty space. It is where the weight of what you are saying actually settles in. It creates a small moment of anticipation. And anticipation is one of the most magnetic feelings a person can experience. The same idea applies to the actual words you choose, not in some manipulative way, just in a way that shows there is more going on beneath the surface than small talk. Instead of saying something flat like, "You're interesting," try something like, "There's something about you I can't quite figure out yet." That tiny shift in wording invites curiosity instead of just handing over a compliment and moving on. It makes the other person wonder what you actually noticed, and that wondering is where real intrigue lies. The goal here is never to trick anyone. It is simply to talk like someone who is actually paying close attention, instead of someone reciting the same lines they say to everyone. Now, let's talk about something that might be the single most powerful thing available to you, and you already have it: eye contact. Done right, it can create a connection so strong someone can feel it in their chest before a single word is spoken. Most people are not used to being looked at with real, undivided attention. Most eyes in most rooms are scanning, checking phones, glancing around, half present at best. So when you actually hold someone's gaze, gently, warmly, without looking away every few seconds, you immediately stand out, simply because you are giving them something almost nobody else does. Here is the important part, though. This is not about staring someone down. A hard, unblinking stare reads as intense, even uncomfortable. What you want instead is a soft gaze, warm around the edges, paired with a relaxed expression, maybe even a small smile. That kind of look says, "I see you, and I am comfortable here," without saying a single word out loud. When someone is talking to you, keep your attention gently on them. Let your face stay open. Resist the urge to glance away out of nervousness. Let them feel, just for a moment, like they have your full and complete attention. Because in a world full of distracted half-conversations, that alone is rare enough to feel almost intimate. There is something else worth understanding about eye contact: the quiet tension that builds when a gaze lingers just slightly longer than usual, especially in a quiet pause in conversation. That lingering is not awkward if it comes from warmth rather than nerves. It says, there is more here worth noticing, without you needing to explain anything. And if the other person looks away first, that is not a bad sign. That is often just a sign that they felt the moment too, and it affected them enough to need a second to process it. Here is what ties all of this together, and it might be the most important part of everything I just said. None of this works as some kind of performance. The moment any of this becomes an act, something you are doing to someone rather than something you are genuinely offering, it falls apart. Because people can feel the difference between real attention and a technique being used on them. The whole reason presence works this well is because it is not a trick. It is simply what happens when a person stops performing and starts actually being there, fully, in the moment, with another human being. So here's what I want you to actually walk away with today. Real attraction, the kind that lasts, is not built by chasing, not built by grand gestures, and definitely not built by touch alone. It is built quietly, in the way you listen, the way your voice settles instead of rushes, the way your eyes stay warm and present instead of scanning the room for something better. It is built by simply being the rare person who shows up fully, instead of half showing up the way most people do. Master that, and you will not need a single trick, because presence itself becomes the most magnetic thing you can offer anyone. Thanks so much for watching this one all the way through. If this actually gave you something to think about, go ahead and hit subscribe so you do not miss the next video, because there is a lot more coming on this. I will catch you in the next one.